Chicago skyline. Jardine is the largest filtration plant in the world, purifying 1.75 million gallons of water daily for Chicago and its suburbs. Lake Michigan Lake. Don't let the seeming calm of this lake fool you. Lake Michigan has produced phenomenal hurricane winds of 100 miles per hour. The Trump Tower was once proclaimed to be the future world's tallest building until the events of September 11, 2001 scaled down the plan of the structure by a few hundred feet. Science and industry, the gift of Julius Rosenwald, president of Sears Robots, is in Jackson Park, about 5 miles south of here on Lakeshore Drive. At the north end of Grand Park, along Michigan Avenue, is Millennium Park, mostly hidden from our view by greenery. It is a marvelous exterior with two white antennas that some might say has the appearance of a stack of boxes, is the Sears Tower, now named Willis Tower. What was the Sears Tower is now home to the Willis Company, one of the world's leading insurance Italian Carrera marble. It's the same type of marble that Michelangelo used for his statue of David. The marble might be fine, the statue is beautiful, but it was not able to sustain a high roof when it came down.
Welcome aboard the John Hancock Observatory elevator. Since I have your attention for the next 40 seconds, I'd like to tell you a little about myself. I'm the fastest elevator in North America. Some inferior elevators might dispute this, but I want to assure you this is a simple scientific fact. Right now, we're traveling at approximately 20 miles per hour, 1,030 feet, straight up. Enjoy America's first interactive telescopes while exploring Chicago with David Swimmer on our free multimedia tour. And we're nearly there. Enjoy your 360-degree sky-high view and stop by our cafe for a coffee or cocktail. Be sure to mention who got you up in record time.
It was the tallest all-electric building in the world, drawing enough power to serve a city of 30,000 people. Even the stoves in the restaurants and residences are electric. However, with energy bills as high as $2.8 million a year and rising in the mid-1980s, John Hancock Center underwent an energy retrofit program.
Basically, we had more equipment to run, and it was a little different now. We had to turn on boilers and chillers back then. Everything ramped up to 100% speed.
For real fresh air, the observatory on the 94th floor is a skywalk.
The skywalk at the Hancock Observatory lets people step outside. We took out 16 9-foot plate glass windows and replaced them with NASA-tested stainless steel, and it gives a full feel of what it's like to be 1,000 feet over Chicago. We have sun that comes through there. We have snow. We have clouds that people can walk through the clouds. The wind, of course, comes through there.
Special heating elements keep the skywalk floor ice-free during Chicago's legendary winters.
It's an incredible place to get a great perspective of life. The city's bustling down below. You step away from it up here at 1,000 feet high, and there's peace, there's tranquility. Things are a little tinier. It gives you a bigger feeling. And for many people, they're on the ground all the time. They don't get a chance to come to the fourth tallest building in the United States. So it is a great place to be for all ages.
He said, you and about 300 other people. He said, but everybody comes in, they want to buy it, they fight on the price, they have all kind of contingencies. And I said, well, what do you want for it? He says, I want $5 million. I said, okay. He said, I want a signed contract within 3 days. I said, okay.
Ullman flew his attorney to Chicago with a certified check, and the contract was signed the next day.
I thought it was a great location for the property. I visualized it as really originally an office building site. We were paying a lot of money for the property at that time, and I figured out how many square feet I would have to get on here to make it economically feasible. And I contacted Skidmore, Owens & Merrill, who I thought then, and I still think today, was probably the best architectural firm in the country.
Also known as SOM, the firm assigned the project to a team of about 60, led by Bruce Graham, the partner in charge of design, and Fazler Khan, project structural engineer.
Well, after they came with the design and showed me what they wanted to do, I must have looked at 100 sketches, and then I talked to Mr. Khan, who was the engineer on the project, who's probably the greatest engineer that ever lived. The more he kept talking to me, the more I kept saying to him, what I really needed is I needed a building that fit in with the characteristics of Chicago. It had to be bold, it had to have guts, it had to have something that stood out. And Mr. Khan kept saying to me, you and I are thinking alike.
After getting the go-ahead from Ullman to start the first stage of designing a 2.8 million gross square foot building, the team came up with a concept that had two separate buildings. One 70-story building for offices, and one 45-story building for apartments, making the property multi-use, a fairly new idea in the 1960s. As soon as the design was complete, Ullman flew to Boston to make a deal with John Hancock Mutual Life Insurance, a deal that would secure for him the financing he needed to build his dream project.
And we immediately sold them the land that I bought for $5 million. We sold it to them for $6 million. And we agreed to lease the land back for 60 years, provided that they would make a loan to build the two buildings.
John Hancock loaned Ullman $72 million.
When I sold the land to
So, how was Chicago's greatest time?
Sociology. Facing the other way.
Oh my God.
I thought so. Why not come back for a return visit within 48 hours for only $7? Just see our friendly staff in the lobby. Is anyone timing me? We also get back down to the ground in 40 seconds as we cruise at a speed of 26 feet per second. If your ears are popping, I do apologize. But if we slowed down, I wouldn't be the fastest in North America. And touchdown is near. Be sure to tell everyone back home about your sky-high trip. Feedback is welcome on jhochicago.com and like us on Facebook. Thanks for
There's like a
visiting.
name for it.
The opportunity to rebuild the city attracted the city's finest young architects, including Daniel Burnham, John Root, and Louis Sullivan, who developed the style of architecture that became known as the Chicago School. Just 2 decades after the fire rose the world's first iron-framed fireproof skyscraper, William LeBaron Jennings' 10-story home insurance building. Perhaps a modest comparison to our skyscrapers is the historic row of buildings beyond our lakefront greenery, known as the Michigan Avenue Cliff. This row of buildings along Michigan Avenue seamlessly blend together despite their architectural style differences. If you were to continue north on Michigan Avenue, you would reach a section referred to as the Magnificent Mile.
And one thing I find kind of unique about his plan in Chicago, he said people should be within walking distance of a park when they live downtown. That's true here in Chicago. A lot of his stuff took over 100 years to come into pass. We're just starting to see it come into play from 1909. And Daniel Burnham referred to Chicago as the Paris on the Prairie. A lot of French influences within our city, gardens and fountains and balustrades. Now, after the Chicago fire, Chicago was set with the task of rebuilding the city. You can't use wood anymore, it's illegal. The whole city had burnt down from being made out of wood. And when you support a building using brick and build it from the walls in, the taller that building gets, the wider the base needs to be to support it, which means you can't have very tall buildings if you want any floor space at the bottom of the building. So a man by the name of William LeBaron Jennings comes up with the idea of the internal frame or steel structure, and realizes you can actually support a building from the inside out and hang the walls of this internal frame like curtains or picture frames. Now his colleague Louis Sullivan takes this one step further. He said no one has ever designed vertically before, they've only thought horizontally. He would start thinking vertically. That's how the skyscraper was born, right here in Chicago. Now I do invite you to take out your cameras. There's a great photo op coming up. I know the first time I came out of the river under Lakeshore Drive I was pretty taken back by this view, so I want you to enjoy this impressive skyline. Kind of tallest amongst that clump of buildings. That's the Aon Center, or Big Stan as it was affectionately known, was built by the Indiana Standard Oil Company in 1973. It's also been the Amoco building. Now the Indiana Standard Oil Company thought it'd be a tremendous idea to put Carrara marble all up and down the sides of this building. So they put 43,000 sheets of the same stuff that Michelangelo used to create his David. Problem is the Carrara marble doesn't do very well in Chicago weather. It began to crumble and break. You see the thinner that Carrara marble gets, the more delicate it becomes. They're putting 43,000 sheets up there, it's going to be very thin. Look right next to it, that triangle-shaped building. That is the Swiss Hotel, designed by an architect named Harry Weiss. Harry Weiss loved his triangles. Now the reason why this particular building is a triangle is because 2 sides of it have views of the lake, and 2 sides have views of the river, giving each one of the hotel rooms a little bit more value. Here in Chicago, 2010. Now what gets its name Aqua from those undulating balconies, they give it a wave-like effect. Well, they provide unique views from each one of the condos that are located inside the building, and they stop birds from flying in the side of it, which is pretty nice. Certain things repeat themselves within the style, and hopefully by the end of the tour you might be able to see a certain style and know it's that style, because you'll see 1 or 2 characteristics that you've seen in previous buildings on the same style. That's you'll probably be able to pick it up and see how it goes. Now a great example of postmodernism is going to be coming up here right on your right-hand side. This is the NBC Tower from Adrian Smith's Skidmore, Owings & Merrill. Now I want you to notice those vertical lines, very Art Deco-esque. Well, if you look 3/4 of the way up, you'll see upside-down L's. Those are flying buttresses. Now they are not weight-bearing like they might be in an old Gothic cathedral, but they do give tribute to the Tribune building, which we're going to see in just a little bit. A lot of nationally syndicated talk shows are filmed there, including... Sure, the verdict is probably still out if you ask for the student's point of view. Next up, just past the Fidelity investment sign, you're going to see the flying buttresses of the Tribune Tower. 1925, they have a contest for most beautiful office building in the world. And Howells and Hood win with this neo-Gothic design. They beat out 262 other applicants for a $50,000 prize. They're celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Tribune Company in 1925. Now, if you stand on ground level, you can actually see pieces of other famous buildings built in the building, like the Taj Mahal, the White House. There's even moon rocks built in. And the editor-in-chief in 1925, Colonel McCormick, he had a secret passageway built into his office, so he can make a quick getaway through a bookcase if need be. Now, why he would need a secret passageway, I have absolutely no idea, but he was a bit of an eccentric fellow, so he had one built in just in case he needed it. He also had a quote inscribed in stone in his office. It was his favorite quote. The author of that quote himself. He has his own quote describing about this. Look to your right, you see the Wrigley building. Those art style hints at Spanish survival. This building was built in 2 parts in the early 20s. There are 250,000 pieces of fire terracotta on the outside of this building. Terracotta naturally bleeds, how to be clean. That's why it has that white finish. They light it up from across Michigan Avenue at night, giving an ode to the White City. They were talking about with the Chicago World's Fair. It's one of Chicago's newest landmarks. It got landmark status 2 months ago. Now, Mr. Wrigley started his company as a way to sell soap and cleaning products. He would give out 2 sticks of gum to say thank you for buying his soap. The gum became more popular than the soap, i.e. Wrigley gum. Now from 2 iconic buildings to a man that thinks he's an icon, I give you the Trump Tower! 2009 postmodern offering from Skid Row's in Maryland, one Mr. Donald Trump. Most modern buildings, they fit really well in their surroundings. It's almost like they're influenced by them. This is the 2nd tallest building here in Chicago, and I have to admit, it's a pretty interesting looking one. It actually complements the space pretty well, so all done, Mr. Trump. Nothing more than that internal frame, the skeleton, the skin, the curved wall, no decoration. It's very streamlined, its design, really celebrating the function of the building. Now that is a prime example of modernism. And Mies van der Rohe is considered one of the pioneers of modernism. His famous quote, "Less is more." Minimalism. You see that within the modernist work. You see they don't need decoration because they're celebrating function. Now coming up here on your right, you're going to see a student of Mies van der Rohe, Bertrand Goldberg, in his Marina City or Corncob Towers. Now Goldberg designed with nature in mind. He said there are absolutely no straight lines in nature. No absolute straight lines, excuse me. So I'm going to revolt against the straight lines. So usually a curvilinear design. And this is truly a city within a city. You can park your boat, park your car, go eat at a restaurant, go shop, go see a movie in what now is the House of Blues, and then retire upstairs to your condo. Truly a shut-in's paradise. I want you to notice that it is asymmetrical. There are more parts to the right side than there are to the left. Well, it didn't always sit that way. You see, they widened LaSalle Street and actually lopped off 20 feet of the building to do it, making it asymmetrical. So it only sat in Shreveport for about 10 years. Own zip code just for this building, 60654. Commissioned by Marshall Fields, wholesale furniture, 1931. He got in a bit of tax trouble for the Great Depression. Had to sell the building off. Sold it to one Joseph P. Kennedy, father of the Kennedys. Now, I read the Kennedys bought the building for $14 million. They sold it off like quality of those windows, like the windows have been punched out by a machine. We're celebrating mass production around that period of time as well. Last, you probably saw those Pez head statues. Those are the barons of merchandise. Edward Filene, John Woolworth, Marshall Fields, a couple Sears presidents as well. Now, as we do pass the bridge, I do invite you to look back at the merchandise part, really taking its pure size. Now you can see its 3rd side. 4.2 million square feet of floor space. That's just short of the Sears Tower. The difference is the Sears Tower builds up while the merchandise part builds out. It's incredible how big that building is. Now we got a Wolf Point. This is where the 3 branches of the river converge. And in the beginnings of Chicago, there was a tavern that sat on 3 corners of Wolf Point. They served as meeting places. Riverbend building from James DiStefano, 2002. Now what's unique about this particular building is that all the condos face the river. There are no condos on the backside, only hallways that run along the backside, giving each one of the condos riverfront. Number 1 in the market is the Trump Tower for $35 million. So you guys want to talk after me, we can pull some money and have a nice little summer home. Let me know. I do love to point out that this railroad bridge is directly in front of us. This is an example of a Chicago-style bascule bridge. We'll talk about that more later, but I like to point it out because they don't use it anymore, so they leave it up like that. And it's a beautiful image of old technology and how Chicago's still kind of celebrating it and leaving it instead of just taking the bridge down itself. But it's such a beautiful shot. There are 60 miles of unused freight train tunnels that run under our city. After a bit of procrastination, that puncture becomes a leak. And then the leak becomes a flood. 7 days it takes to clean up $1 billion worth of damage. The Thompson Center, which is 6 blocks from here, they said the food court, it looked like a small pond. There are fish floating around in it. Now the reason why I refer to it as the Great Chicago Leak is because floods sometimes are not covered under insurance purposes. Now I want to talk a little bit just briefly about the Illinois-Michigan Canal, the I&M Canal. It was the first canal that connected these 2 rivers together, and that was its initial purpose. And what's amazing about this canal, it was built basically on the backs of Irish immigrants. And basically they would come to Chicago and they weren't looked upon very highly because you have a Protestant Chicago with the Roman Catholic Irish that are coming in. So they got very low income, low wage jobs. They would build this canal, it was a 100-mile canal, with their bare hands. They got paid $1 a day and a whiskey. Now, I say their bare hands, but they really had very little materials to work with, so they would use their hands to dig this canal. And what's crazy on top of all that is that they would go home and dig holes in their backyard so their muscles wouldn't tense up so they could go to work the next day. And it's incredible you think about that Chicago was literally built, some of our part of it, handmade by immigrants that came into town. Incredible things. Hollywood Route, late 1920s. And I want you to notice the two clock towers. They are modeled at the Sphinx legs. There's a lot of Egyptian references within Art Deco pieces. King Tut's tomb was found around that period of time. So we're celebrating those archaeological digs within the carvings and structures of the building. Now, I invite you to look back at the Boeing building, taking those steel girders, that's what I'm talking about. That is what's supporting that building. Also, if you look all the way up, now it is kind of hard to see because the scaffolding's up, but there are actually trains that run underneath this building. That's that air rights in action. We're going to get a better look at it in just a little bit. Now, if you like Gateway 1, you're going to love Gateway 2. This is the exact twin of Gateway 1, just west of Bridge. The John Hancock building, and they leave those X's out in what's called structural expressionism, really celebrate the structural design. You can actually take a part of a floor out of the John Hancock building, it'll be structurally sound because of those X's. I find they're amazing. Now going up here on your right hand side, you'll see Gateway 4. This is the last of the Gateway complex. From Gates and Stefano, postmodern offering. I'll be flipping your right hand side. Next up in your right hand side, you'll see the old post office. Largest post office in the world. When it was first built, so big, in fact, the Congress Parkway runs right through the middle of it. Sorry about that, we have a big horn here on the Voyager. Congress Parkway. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, this looks very Gotham City-esque. It was in the Dark Knight, opening bank robbery scene. The zip line from Gateway 4 make their way to the old post office. Now, why would we need such a giant post office here in Chicago? Town squares to protest it being there. And ironically, he lost his entire inventory in the Chicago Fire of 1871. Had to start again, and he did. If you look to your right, you'll see the new Central Post Office, a modern marvel of technology in 1996 from Knight Architects. You can actually drive the mail trucks into the building. The floors are color-coded by type of mail, making the separating the sorted mail a much more efficient process. They even use a barcoding system to help separate the mail. Now, Knight Architects is extremely excited to show off this building. They have a big ribbon-cutting ceremony. All the newspapers, all the news cameras are invited. Cow Daisy, she has a hankering for some milk. Daisy gets startled, kicks over her lantern, sends the barn up in a blaze of glory. There's a tremendous drought in Chicago. The wind is blowing. Her poor Irish immigrant neighborhood goes up in flames. Remember, the river's very toxic, so as the flames get to the river, they jump the river. Heads downtown, burns the infrastructure of Chicago to the ground, leaving only the water tower. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the Chicago fire absolutely happened. It is a turning point in Chicago's history. But I am sorry to say, for a lot of people, the story of Mrs. O'Leary did not. A Chicago Tribune writer admitted years later to making up the story to sell newspapers. Imagine that. They made up news to sell newspapers. That never happens nowadays. They don't really know the Chicago fire was started. They have theories and things that went wrong, like the first responders went the wrong way to the call. Mrs. O'Leary is a real person. Her homestead sat right where the Chicago Fire Academy sits, but at that time period it was commonplace to blame the Irish for things, so she made for a natural scapegoat. She was exonerated years later at John Marshall Law School. So was her cow, Daisy. They took a lot of flack for stuff they never actually did. But if you ask anyone that lives in Chicago, we call it the Sears Tower. And I want to give you an authentic tour. So you're welcome to call whatever you like. I'll understand what you're talking about, but bear with me, they call it the Sears Tower the rest of the way. So ladies and gentlemen, the Sears Tower, 1,454 feet to the top, 1,707 with the antennas. The antennas, however, do not count towards total height. See, the counts on tall buildings and urban habitat, they say the antennas are functional and do not count towards total height. But spires are decorational, and they do count. So although the Sears Tower is the tallest building in the United States, it lost its crown of tallest building in the world to the Twin Towers in Malaysia, whose spires are a bit taller. But at this point, it is a moot point, because the Burj Khalifa in Dubai is now the tallest building in the world. It's like putting a second Sears Tower on top of it. Now, the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat, they meet here in Chicago. The architect that created the Burj Khalifa, Adrian Smith, he is a resident of Chicago. So our hands are everywhere. Now, the design of the Sears Tower is Fazil Khan, the engineer in 1973, an incredible design. He designed it to have 9 setbacks. It's almost like 9 separate buildings that are bundled at the bottom. And each one of the setbacks is a steel tube that runs amongst it, allowing the building to sway 3 feet. The birthday cake building. The postmodern offering from Cohen, Peterson, and Fox. Kind of looks like a castle. Well, it was modeled after the Water Tower, a resident castle in downtown Chicago. Now the top of it has a crown that lights up at night. And it was so bright when it was first built, it actually changed the migration path of birds. They thought it was the moon. Now they've turned it down a bit since then. They light it up for different holidays. They had it lit up red, white, and blue for the 4th of July. It looked like an old bomb pop. They might get it for an ice cream man. If you see it now, it's lit up teal. It's to celebrate ovarian cancer awareness. So I'm going to be quiet for a little bit and let you enjoy this tremendous view. Please enjoy it. Just think, they're all taking a picture of us too. On the windows. And I read it took them just over an hour and a half to climb the entire Sears Tower. I guess once you start, you want to get up as soon as you possibly can. Now we just passed under Adams Street. This is historic Route 66. Gets its start here in Chicago. Makes it all the way out to California. That's the bridge that we just passed under as we speak. Now, I mentioned Chicago was built with back some Irish and pretty easy for us because they put the name of this building on the side of it. But it's misspelled. It says the building. Well, as I know it's the Roman alphabet. They had no U's. They used a V even though it's written in English. Now if you look straight up, you'll notice setbacks. The throne-like quality. They nicknamed this Insull's throne. And there are many stories that are associated with Insull's throne. One is that Insull had a daughter who did opera in New York. She wasn't very good, so New York said thanks but no thanks. And the man they nominated for presidency that year, Abraham Lincoln. Got to start right here. And you can see they're actually painting the bridge right now. Kind of cool. Now we've been up the South Branch of the river. We've been up the North Branch. We're headed back down the Main Branch. You ever see a Chicago municipal sign that has a Y on it? Hard time selling office space from that building because there are no corner offices. No, there's a lot of nautical influences within this building. You'll see porthole air conditioning units. And if you look at 225, West Wacker was built 6 years later. To its right, our left, there's porthole windows. You actually have to bring fire hose in and spray them off to cool them down to get them to close and lock correctly. So usually only open them twice a week. Wednesday mornings and Saturday mornings is a way to combat that. It's very rare to see a bridge that has pedestrian traffic, car traffic, and train traffic all on the same bridge. Now in New York in the early 20s, there was suspicion that buildings were getting built too tall, too fast. They're going to block out the sun, take up all the good air, make life miserable for the people that lived on the grounds. And New York said, we got to do something about this. We got to have an ordinance. Only a certain percentage of the building can be at its full potential. We got to have setbacks. Allow air to naturally flow through the middle of the building, giving it a cannon-like effect, getting air to each one of those floors. And now we don't have that ordinance anymore, but you see postmodern buildings that have an Art Deco feel to them. They often have setbacks. The hub of diamond trade in the early 20s. There's an auto elevator located inside this building, and jewelers can actually drive their cars to the building and take you up to whatever floor you need to drop your jewels off at, so you didn't have to do it on the street. That's not to say there weren't criminals there. So it was rumored that Al Capone ran a speakeasy called the Stratosphere Lounge, just skyscraper in the world, for 1 week in 1928. It is the Mather Tower, skinniest skyscraper here in Chicago, a neo-Gothic design. The top is actually a replica of the original. They put a new top on in 2000. It's slightly a different color. Some of the facades began to crumble and break. They put a new top on it. And there's about 300 square feet of floor space at the top of that building. Next to the Mather Tower, you see the London Guarantee and Accident Building. It's a Beaux-Arts style building, great columns and symmetry to it. It is important to more where it sits. You see it sits in the site of Fort Dearborn. Fort Dearborn is an important event. Chicago's history is represented in the Chicago flag. There are 4 stars on the Chicago flag. 1 for the fire, 1 for the World's Fair of 1893, 1 for the World's Fair of 1933, and 1 for Fort Dearborn. The 2 blue lines represent the Chicago River, and the white that represents the side Chicago, the north side, the south side, the west side. The east side is represented by Lake Michigan. Now we are about to pass under the DuSable Bridge, and this was renamed after the very first permanent resident of Chicago, John Baptiste Pont DuSable. He was of French and Haitian descent, a fur trader and a farmer. He lived here for just over 20 years, considered the It is the 4th tallest building here in Chicago. It goes Sears Tower, Trump Tower, It also has the Aon Center, and then John Hancock Building's last, the fourth. You look out there, you'll see those antennas sticking up and those X's we talked about with the structural expressionism. Now, I would recommend for my adult passengers, go at night, have a drink in the Signature Lounge. Beautiful views. Unfortunately for the gentlemen on the boat, we cannot see the very best view. You see, it's in a ladies' restroom. There's a floor-to-ceiling window. And I'm told my fiance it's pretty breathtaking. In fact, she tells me every single time we're remotely close to the building, so it's probably pretty good. So definitely, if you go, ladies, use the restroom while you're there. Cities like New York and St. Louis, and they've bragged about our city a lot. And the politicians around the world said, are you listening to these politicians in Chicago? All the hot air, all the wind coming out of their mouths. They're all long-winded. That's how we got our nickname, the Windy City. Now, I do want to point out really fast, on your right-hand side, you see the river walkways, and kind of reinforcing what we talked about with the North Branch. It shoots over the river. It does it for 10 minutes at a time. It is an hourly schedule. We do time our tours around it, so we won't get hit. As I admit, some days it would feel nice to go right through the middle of it, but definitely check that out. I'd say stand behind it and see as it shoots over the river. It's pretty cool to see.
So right here I want to talk about this building basically right in front of it with the facade, the American facade basically looking right at us. This is called the Swiss Hotel. Designed by an architect named Harry Reed. A very young and if you look at that building from above, you can see the giant facade.
Gavin called me.
I didn't know you were going to.
Young boss SkyDeck. Welcome to the SkyDeck. You're on your way to the top of the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. Along the way, you can watch as we pass by some of the tallest buildings, monuments, and structures in the world. Soon, you'll be enjoying what we like to think of as the best view in the world. On a clear day, you can see for miles and into 4 neighboring states. You're riding up this 1,450-foot modern marvel in one of the tower's 104 elevator cars. Your trip to the SkyDeck will only take about a minute and a half. That means your elevator is traveling at a speed of more than 16 feet per second. The tower opened its doors in 1973 and held the title of the world's tallest building for 25 years. The west antenna reaches 1,730 feet above the Chicago streets. And now we're here, 103 stories up. Welcome to the top.
Das sieht ja aus. So hin. I got
All right, over here, girls.
Get it?
One more.
I want to bad spot. Yeah.
All right.
And be sure to check out the ledge, 4 glass balconies that extend out from the west edge of the SkyDeck and make you feel like you're walking in midair, 103 stories above Wacker Drive and the Chicago River.
Okay, you're not going to magically fall asleep. Don't worry about it.
The light's coming this way.
Come here, honey. There's a movie. Oh, give me your phone. Give me your phone.
Oh my God.
Are you okay?
I am fine. Yeah. And that's the third building or something. I don't know, but there's a major traffic. Did you see that?
Today, no. We saw another one.
이쪽으로 빨리. 아버님 이쪽으로 있겠죠, 앞에.
Thanks for visiting the SkyDeck. We hope you enjoyed your time at the top and the best view of Chicago and beyond. The 1,450-foot tower has been a Chicago landmark and an American icon since it was completed in 1973. Willis Tower is one of the world's most amazing structures, and there's always more to learn about its remarkable story. For example, did you know that the tower has more than 4.5 million square feet of space inside? If you have any questions or just want to learn more, be sure to ask one of our friendly SkyDeck staff. We hope you had a wonderful time here at the SkyDeck, and we hope to see you again soon. Thanks for coming. When you're done with your SkyDeck experience, take a ride with the Chicago Trolley and Double Decker Company to visit a few of Chicago's other most popular sites.
State Street further along east. That's State Street that divides the east side from the west side. Don't look like that to me. Girls are prettier than this sculpture, right? To me, it was modeled after his Afghan hound dog. Because he beloved those kind of dogs. Look at the long snout in the front, the beady eyes, and the nostrils at the bottom of the snout, and the ears with 6 on the left and the right. This is what Afghan hound dogs look like. And just recently, I was watching the Animal Farm channel. It validated what I believe. Still believe. It was modeled after this dog. Yes. They showed a picture of him standing up next to it. One of those dogs. It was like Bill Merchant. Then he became the owner of Marshall Film Company, the largest retail store in the world. He was the first retail store owner to cater to the ladies. When women would go inside of the stores wanting things and needing things, Marshall Pier would announce, "Here, the lady, what she wants." So ladies, whenever you're out shopping with your husband, the things that you might want for them to buy you, they tell you no, remind him of what Marshall Field said, "Here's the lady, what she wants." Yes. To the right over here is the largest Walgreens building or store in the world. Coming up next is our stop number 14, the Chicago Theater. They used to show a lot of movies here, but now they show live performances. We drop you out here, we're not coming back there, 2, 3, so on and so on. This is the time where the tour starts to end. Starting at 5. To the left over here is the ABC Channel 7 Studios. Looks like corn on the car. Old condos are in these good towers here. These was built in the 1960s to keep Chicago from moving out of downtown into the west suburbs. Second, to the right, IBM building, designed by Millennium. And right next to it, that's our International Powering Hotel. The second tallest building in Chicago. Have 12 restaurants inside. They have hotel rooms, condos, and office spaces. This is what Derrick Rose made in Chicago Bulls Chicago and back. In Chicago, in the roughest and toughest neighborhood here called Inglewood. And this is the 17th Church of Christ Science. The people that attend this church do not belong to religion. They also have that tiny metal 1-ton ball over there called the beam. It's designed that way to reflect the Chicago skyline, and they have it two crown fountains inside. Millennium Park is coming up in a couple of minutes. She's the first woman in the U.S. to ever receive a project this big. And this building is called the Aqua Building because of the waterway designs that's on the glass, the waterways. Look at the footprints on the front of the building. And then look up the side of it, you can see footprints on it. The lower level is called lower whacker, the middle level is called upper whacker, and this level that we're about to roll up to is called upper whacker drive. Coming up to the left over there, that's the Hyatt Regency Hotel of Chicago. We place to stay. Over there, it's the longest freestanding bar in the U.S., 100 feet, 6 inches long, and it is called the Big Bar. They have a drink over there that's called the Big Margarita, where they would put 12 straws into that glass, 12 ounces of straws at a cost of $12. That's the Big Margarita drink in the Big Bar. Stop number 2 is approaching us. To the right of it is where Fort Dearborn was located in the early 1800s. It was built as a safe haven for U.S. soldiers and their families. Hill station in front of us. There's 144 of these stations in Chicago that can take you to the north, south, east, and west side of the city. It's 118 years old and the second oldest Hill station system in the U.S. There's the ESPN show of Chicago. They have a football show over there. The Bears quarterback, the host of that show. Looking building called the James Thompson Center, named after our former governor. There are many restaurants inside. Current governor, Pat Quinn, has one of his offices in this building. This is where Chicagoans goes to renew their driver's license, state ID cards, and get a copy of their birth certificates from here. This is also known as the State of Illinois building. And if you, while you're in Chicago and you play the Illinois lottery and win millions of dollars, this is where you go to pick up your big fat check from. Yes. And when you do so, don't forget about me, David, your tour guide. All right? And further to the left is the Palace Theater, also a part of the theater district in downtown Chicago. And we're going to make a left turn. And when we do so, you'll see this building here. It is called City Hall. And this is where our mayor, Rahm Emanuel, has his office. About to make this left turn on LaSalle LaSalle Street, also known as Commerce Canyon. It's known as that because there's over 20 banks and financial institutions on the street. There's more money exchanges hands on this street on a daily basis than it does in any place in the world, including Wall Street. And to the left is the City Hall building. And straight ahead, you see that tall base building. That's the Chicago Board of Trade. And on top of it is a statue of a faceless woman. Her name is Sears. She's the Roman goddess of agriculture and grain, but mostly they're trading future stock inside of this building. And on the 43rd floor of this structure, this is where the airing of the Soul Train show took place at. But they're on the 43rd floor, the building in front of us. It was created by the late Don Cornelius. There's the Art Institute of Chicago coming up to the left, guarding the entrance to Grant Park, and they're coming up to your left. To the right over is Roosevelt University. Al Washington, the only elected African-American mayor of Chicago, attended this university. There's Bowman and Spearman directly to your left. There's a saying that if the horse have one leg up on a statue, that is a sin. To the left, over here's another view of Soldier Field. And straight ahead, you will be able to see the Shed Aquarium, the second largest aquarium in the world. The shop number 60 of Museumville. This is where the fossils of the T-Rex is located. Its name is Sue. Then there's a replica of a brontosaurus on the outside of this building on the far right of it. This is where they used to fly in the helicopter U.S. president to land him on top of the pad with David inject on the suite. And it's ground level here, the east side of Grant Park. This is where currently President Obama gave his victory speech here, and he won the 2008 presidential election. 300,000 people to meet him here. I was included in that group. And to the left is the Buckingham Fountain that's coming up. It was dedicated to Clarence Buckingham, his Buckingham's brothers, and his fountain was donated to Chicago. This is the same fountain that was displayed in the opening credits of the Married with Children show. That water can shoot up 50 feet high in the center. It lights up in all kind of colors at nighttime. The largest fountain in the world. And the reason it was in the Married with Children show, because people were over here to get married. Next is the Chicago Yacht Club, where they teach their members and Navy men trained here, including former President Herbert Walker Bush. Many restaurants here, the Harry Carey Tavern, the number shrimp places here, others. We have a children's museum here, stained glass museum, and wax museum here. The 4 clocks on each side of it. The North Tower was built and connected to the South Tower. There's 250,000 pieces of tower. It's the most expensive at that time. The inside and outside trim is made of brass, and on the 14th floor, in 1931, they constructed a warp path up there, designed to look like one of the L train systems at that time. This building is also known as the Jewel of the Nile because it's a part of this magnificent Nile.